What's shaking, bacon? In today's video, I'm going to do an interview with a friend of mine who's been a carnivore for almost 3 years. So I'd like to introduce everyone to an old friend of mine, Paul McDonald.
Hi.
So I've known Paul since I was about 11 years old. Now, we started really hanging out when I was 13, when we started grade 9 together. And I remember every now and then he'd have a thermos with him. Paul was drinking coffee in grade 9. Were you drinking coffee before that?
Well, I started with Coke. It wasn't really even my choice. My mom gave me a Coke every morning. Wake up, it's time for Coke. And I wasn't so crazy about the super sweet sugar, but the caffeine I loved, so I stuck with coffee.
When did you start that? Like in grade 8, grade 9?
Had to have been somewhere around grade 9 where I had to get up and really work hard in high school.
So tell everyone a bit about yourself now.
So I am 48, and since this is a carnivore channel, I've been on Carnivore, like Bruno mentioned, for coming up on 3 years now. So I have 3 kids, all in our teens. My daughter just turned 13, so I got 3 teenagers in the house, 2 boys and a girl. My lovely wife. We go to a local church. We've been very active there for a long time. I have been really enjoying this carnivore lifestyle, and I see it as a lifestyle too, because although I have worked out in the past, I find that I don't have to work out a lot when I'm on carnivore. And one of the things I love doing, my favorite exercise, is splitting wood. We have a big fire pit where we host a lot of campfires in the spring and summer, and I just love splitting wood, so that's my good form of exercise, and it also helps me to relieve some stress. It was easy for me to transition to this diet, and having Bruno right by my side made it super, super easy. He sort of did a lot of the hard work right by my side. He did a lot of the hard work early on, and we saw the benefits in his life, and then I saw the benefits in my wife's life, and I'm like, this is for me, this is for us.
What benefits did you see in my life?
So I saw the weight loss, and I saw strength. I remember at times you were stronger and weaker at different times in your life. And I know that you've been someone who works out for a lot of your life. I remember in high school you had weights in the house all the time, and you were working out and even coaching other people on how to work out. Really saw a lot of positive things happen in your life when you changed your diet for the better.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is Paul never knew me when I was skinny. I didn't start putting on weight till I was about 10 years old. We met when I was about 11. And he just always knew me as the fat kid, right? Just that was like we had a mutual friend. And
I didn't hold that against you.
Yeah, so it's about time we get this out. He bullied me all through my teen years, even into my 30s, to tell you the truth. It's been a hard thing to actually come to terms with and open up to the world about what it was like.
He's forgiven me.
Yeah. I was a really big kid. What did you see when I was losing weight? I remember in art class, because we had all our art classes together all the way through high school. It's pretty cool. I remember at one point when I was losing all this weight, near the end, Paul said, "Your fingers are really skinny." I did. I got really skinny fingers.
I noticed more strength. You've always had very broad shoulders, of course, much broader than mine.
Yeah. And sorry. Yeah, I did that through working out.
Yeah, you're just a big guy, right? And I wouldn't even have said you're my fat friend. You're a big guy. You're just a big guy all around, and a lot of that is strength. So I know that when you were working out, and I knew that you'd be working out of an evening, and I'd see you the next day, and you'd be big.
Yeah.
Bigger, stronger.
Yeah. And it was interesting because he saw me go from a fat kid, and it's nice that he didn't think of me as his fat friend, but I went from, we're talking a guy who was at least 350 at 16 years old. And I did it all through weightlifting, and I went down to about just over 200 pounds. But because I did it through weightlifting, how athletic would you say I got when I was in my teen years, when I lost all that weight?
I'm sure all the football players wanted you on their team.
Yeah, they did.
You were that guy, right? Yeah. You were the big guy who nobody messed with you, and rightly so.
Right. Little did they know I was just a big geek because I was a comic book fan. And being a comic book fan back then, compared to now, was way different. It's cool nowadays. Back when I was a comic book fan in the 80s and 90s, it meant you weren't going to kiss a girl for another few years. So even though I lost all that weight, I was still into comic books and Spider-Man and drawing.
Right, so you were a bouncer before, right? And I knew you were the right guy to be the bouncer. You were the head of the bouncer at different places where you worked, and that made a lot of sense to me because you were able to do that. I was always surprised at how you could put on 20 pounds and then lose 20 pounds. That didn't compute in my world because I've always been like the same weight for as long as I can remember. Like literally, I'll fluctuate 5 pounds in 1 year kind of thing. That's it.
So I didn't mind the extra weight, but it got out of control really fast. And I found what worked for me was a zero carb way of eating. And I tried it, different versions of it over a lot of years, but I found consistently, I just learned for myself, I have to abstain. I can't have anything off this way of eating. Paul, when it comes to sugar addiction, it's not a problem. So he doesn't mind treating himself. You may pay the price for it afterwards a little bit, but like it doesn't affect your weight. You don't bloat. You don't have lots of problems most people have.
Yeah, it's definitely a short-term effect that it does have, but it's sometimes so bad in the tummy that I just choose not to. I think wiser of it. So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't affect me that much.
So you're probably treating yourself less and less now.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have cravings. You know, I used to have a real hard time with eating a hamburger without a bun. Now, no big deal. I like it. It's good.
The reason why I started these videos was I was telling Paul about the Lion Diet challenge I was doing back in September through January. And Paul said, when it came to this,
I said, dude, put this on YouTube. Get it out there because your challenge is different. And there's certainly going to be a whole group of people who are you guys watching right now who have a different story. Bruno's got a different story, and this is the story he's telling now. I'm super happy to be a part of this, super happy to be seeing you guys. And yeah, I think if he keeps up with this on YouTube, it's going to be the different YouTube channel all about carnivore.
I wouldn't have thought of doing this if it wasn't for Paul suggesting it. And I thought, you know, yeah, that actually isn't such a bad idea. Because I remember the first thing I thought was, who's going to watch this? Right? Like, nobody knows me. But, you know, some people have subscribed now, and I've gotten a lot of people actually reaching out for advice on how to do this or that. So I think that's pretty cool because I'm getting to help other people at this point.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. It's right somewhere here.
So I first introduced Paul and his wife into this low zero carb way of eating back in 2014 or 15. In 2013 and 14, I started this way of eating and I lost a ton of weight really fast. And I noticed it made my joints better way before I lost any weight. In the first week, my joints felt amazing. The reason why I introduced Paul and his wife to this way of eating was...
About 8 years ago, my wife broke her foot, and it was a nasty break, and it took a really long time to heal. And it was so interesting because we found that it seemed to be taking a lot longer than most foot breaks tend to take to heal. So it went through a long period of time. Bruno was talking to us a lot about some of the ways in which we can help the healing go a little faster and also make the pain go away. The pain was a major issue even long after the heal was complete. So really, really thankful for Bruno, thankful that he was able to be a good friend and tell us about some of the interesting lifestyle changes and diet changes that we can make. We were at the time eating just a regular standard American diet, and it wasn't a problem for us at the time. At the time we were younger and stronger and that kind of thing. So really, really happy to start investigating some of this inflammation reducing diet that can come with lower carb or zero carb. And I think meat is delicious, so it worked for me.
Just to be clear about how much pain Emily was in for a long time, we're talking months, and not just 2 or 3 months. It was coming up to a year of this pain, was it not?
Yeah, and it was really bad too. Like, I know there would be lots of times where she would be just rubbing her foot. It was in such agony that she would have to just rub it, and sometimes be on pain medication just to take the edge off. So it was a long time, and we were starting to get worried that there might be some permanent damage that was there. Bruno came along and said, it sounds like inflammation. So we explored that.
Yeah, I noticed, not just with myself, but other people who tried a zero or extremely low carb way of eating, any arthritic pain they had from old breaks, as well as just arthritis they had in their joints, that pain typically went away. So I thought, yeah, nothing to lose. And the results were...
Emily originally tried a lower carb, not a zero carb diet, and it was actually taking the pain away quite a bit. She also was surprised to discover that her knees, that she just assumed were bad from a childhood injury, and that pain started to go away as well, a real big surprising thing.
How long was that for, that knee pain?
I think from...
All through her 20s, wasn't it?
All through her late teens to all through her 20s and into our married life. And Bruno suggested, like maybe if you cut out carbs altogether, the inflammation will really get better. And really it did. After a week or two, the pain was completely gone. And she was also noticing that she was able to climb the stairs without her knees grinding and clicking and being in pain. I think one of the things she told me originally was every morning her knees would be sore on the way down the stairs until one morning she didn't notice it. And she thought, what's going on here? And realized the pain's gone. It's completely gone.
So Emily ate this way on and off to manage her arthritic pain. So she's tended to find a balance, I think, for a lot of that. Was like she still had some carbs, right?
Well, yeah, and living in a house with 3 kids, they're not carnivore, and they're not by any means even close to strict carnivore like we are. So
Kids.
yeah, they eat bread, they eat pasta, they love Nutella, cereal.
It's just bread and water.
Emily does quite a bit of the cooking in the house, so she's cooking something that smells good and she remembers used to taste great. She'll tend to want to at least be tempted by it and sometimes have some of it. So it is really difficult to maintain and to keep it. Not as difficult for me. I'll just say no and I can just eat meat. I'm happy with that.
About 3 years ago, back in 2019, in the spring, Emily had mentioned that her foot was still bothering her, and she also mentioned she'd kind of slid away from that clean eating. So she recognized that she had to go back to being a little more strict with her diet. Now, I had just been doing this carnivore diet, and I was telling them how amazing I felt on this carnivore diet, how I felt even better than when I did this extremely low carb diet, and it was also way easier for me to stick with. Though I did have trouble sticking with it at the time, it was just a more manageable way of eating because you get to eat as much as you want. It just has to be any food that's in your list of allowed foods. So at that point, Emily started the carnivore diet, and that's when you started it. Now, you did it to support her?
Yeah, for the most part, I, of course, love meat, and the idea of not eating vegetables was exciting to me. I thought, yeah, I don't have to eat vegetables. Sure, just give me the bacon with the ground beef. Awesome. So yeah, I was super happy to support her because I know that she needed someone to support her as she tried to make this drastic change. And so she made the drastic change because she wanted to get rid of the pain. So she made that change. I was right alongside, happily eating all the meals that she was making, meat, and more meat. And yeah, we just sort of adapted. To this day, it's a little bit difficult for her to maintain 100% because variety is something that she's missing. So that's not an issue for me. I'll eat anything you put in front of me as long as it's meat. I love it. So yeah, we've been going strong for, like I said, about coming up on 3 years now. And I fell in love with it. I was, of course, skeptical at first. I was like, what about vitamin C? I'm a researcher, so I did lots of research and I discovered that so many of the things that we've been taught are just wrong. And so you go on lots of the Facebook groups, lots of different carnivore pages and websites, and you find out the answers to your questions. So I encourage everyone to get out there and ask your questions, and you will get the answers. Very supportive community.
Sometimes you get people who ask genuinely curious questions. They just want to know. They've never heard of anything like this. And then you get other people, and they just want to be sort of confrontational, and they want to kind of catch you on stuff, right? Because they think what you're doing isn't healthy. Did you run into that much?
So yeah, I work with quite a lot of people, and when they first started seeing me come into work with only meat, the questions started, right? And I had legitimate questions too, but I always try to give legitimate answers. So I started looking, and I found the answers. So you get online, you start looking, and you're going to find the answers to the questions. And there's certain websites that cover it very well, and they show that so many different things can be healed, sometimes permanently, with this carnivore diet. So I was all on board. In fact, I didn't expect anything to really change for me because I've been a healthy guy my whole life.
So I find this really interesting. This is an important thing. Sometimes when it comes to certain ways of eating, depending on what you need for health reasons, you can get by with 90%, 95% if it's to manage certain problems. But when it comes to other problems, sometimes you have to go 100% strict. And Paul, for the first 5 months he did this, used to have sugar in his coffee, right? Now, he had, how many coffees a day? Was it 3?
About 3.
How much sugar in each coffee?
1 spoon. 1 teaspoon.
1 teaspoon. So think about that. 3 teaspoons of sugar a day. What does that equal? Maybe 1 apple a day in sugar? But here's the interesting thing. In the first 5 months, you didn't really notice any health difference, right?
No.
You didn't lose any weight.
No.
Not that you had much weight to lose. You're already a pretty naturally thin guy.
And so I noticed my belly button was a little bit deeper than it once was, than it always has been. And so I thought, maybe there is something to this. 3 teaspoons of sugar a day might actually be the ticket. So I thought, well, what's it going to hurt? Stop the sugar.
And that was when Paul truly decided he hated animals enough to only eat them for the rest of his life.
That's right. You got it.
And after he cut out the sugar, I thought I might have even remembered Paul saying he was never going to cut out the sugar. And time went by, and I thought, for Paul to not have sugar in his coffee kind of blew my mind. So I said, how's that going? And Emily responded with, he lost an inch on his waist. And she said, I didn't think he had an inch to lose. His headaches went away. His excessive sleep patterns went away. The other thing I've known about Paul since we were kids is he's one of those guys that needs, 10 hours, 9 hours minimum sleep a night?
Ideally.
Yeah. Anything less than that, and he's a walking zombie. So it's like, hey, Paul, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's just really low key, a little out of it. You wouldn't want to give him a math problem to solve.
Oh, no, thanks.
Yeah. His chronic headaches, which he had had for years, and his snoring went away. So would you have noticed most of those changes if it wasn't for Emily pointing it out?
I certainly would have noticed the headaches. So I had about 1 or 2 headaches every week, and I would just take Tylenol and deal with it and live my life, and it was just a normal part of my life. And I thought, oh, this is crappy, but I guess that's getting old.
So I've said before, I can't afford to have a lick, taste, or bite of anything that's not on this way of eating because I battle with carb addiction. But Paul, that hasn't been your experience.
No, you know what? I never really even liked sweets. If I ever had a choice at a birthday party between a piece of cake or another hamburger, I'll take the hamburger every time. And so that's never ever been an issue. Saying no to the sweet things that are available in this world, no problem at all. And for the most part, same with carbs and vegetables, like I mentioned before. If someone says you want some more vegetables or you'd like some more beef, I'll take the beef every time. So it really hasn't been an issue for me.
So the transition was easy for you?
It was very enjoyable.
Yeah. See, most people don't have that experience.
Yeah.
Did you even go through the diarrhea most people go through?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
I thought everyone would want to know. What's interesting about that is Paul doesn't feel the same way. Explain what this diet is for you.
This diet does not rule me. I could eat whatever I want, and that's kind of the reality in it with every person. The trouble is, I don't end up falling into this trap of eating the wrong things because I'm mostly not interested in it. But if I am interested to try something, I try it.
Yeah. Food's never been a challenge for you.
Hasn't been a challenge. I like to eat a lot of it, and I still eat a lot of it, but now it's just different food, and it's delicious.
Right. And Emily is at a different point with carnivore. So Paul, how frequently do you have anything that's not on a carnivore diet?
I'd say it's pretty rare for me. I'm fairly strict with it. I would say maybe once a month or so would be the average.
And how much volume would that be in? Is it sometimes like a little treat or is it a whole meal?
Yeah, you know what? Over Christmas, there's certain treats that I remember from long ago that I would have 2 or 3 or 4 over the Christmas season. Other times, maybe once every 6 months, I'll have a big plate of poutine. So very rare.
And that doesn't agree with you that well anymore when you have these big treats, right?
No, one of the things I tried was some dressing over Christmas. So I had a turkey, of course, had a little bit of dressing, maybe a couple tablespoons worth and gravy, and I felt terrible afterwards. I love the taste of it, but it's just not worth it for me.
Emily has a rougher time sticking with this 100%. Where would you say she is with it? 90, 95%?
I'd say right around the 90% range.
Yeah.
Between 90 and 95 for sure.
So how long can you see yourself doing this for?
I don't see why I would ever stop. I'm 48 now. I feel better than I did 20 years ago, for sure.
You're not the first person to make a comment like that.
Yeah, for sure. I have no reason to stop.
How important would you say it is having like-minded friends with this or people that you can network with?
I think if you can find some people to eat with and to talk with face to face, that really makes a huge difference to us. Having you, having you, Bruno, boom, has been awesome. You have been support, and then we can support you, and you can support us, and we can talk about trying different things together, and then we can actually sit down and have those different foods together. It's been great. Love sitting down and eating food.
Yeah, and you know something that's cool about this is I got Paul and Emily into this way of eating a few years ago, and I stopped. I was doing really good with it, and then I got kidney stones. When I saw Paul running with it, and he cut out the sugar, and then I saw the changes it made in Paul, it helped inspire me to do better for myself. So it's funny how you can sharpen each other through this, right?
Totally.
So having people in your group, whether it's your day-to-day life or online, is really beneficial. There's lots of coaching groups you can do out there in social media. Kelly Hogan, I know, has one. Steak and Butter Gal has one. There's lots of different people out there that offer these coaching classes. And if you're trying to get into this way of eating or stick with this way of eating, perhaps that's a smart way to go because you need a group of people to help support you, especially if you have any questions or something doesn't quite feel right, or you just need motivation. That's where you can have people at your fingertips. So thanks a lot, Paul. I appreciate you doing this. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching and tune in again.